I want to touch on that a little bit more, if I may, about the kind of agentic enterprise, because it's something where we hear this term a lot. And I think even if we take it back to just AI in general, right, we hear about generative AI, agentic AI. I think we all know the generative side. I think we've come to grips with that now, whether it's Will Smith eating spaghetti, helping you write your email, whatever it might be on that kind of scale of use of things like ChatGPT and other tools. But I'm keen to touch on a bit more about agentic AI and specifically, as you mentioned there, the agentic enterprise. What is different when it comes to agentic workloads? And again, what do kind of businesses really need to focus on here around this buzz term that we're hearing more and more about at the moment?
Yeah, and I get that it could probably sound a little bit buzzy, but it does have a clear distinction. So I think, like I just said, less of a chatbot, but actually, the idea is that you have your data in Snowflake, but you have all this semantic information and all this sort of elements that relate to data, your own intelligence as a business. And what that's about is that by providing that information, providing your data in a space, being able to work with agents so that actually you have that layer of intelligence that can watch things that are a part of the data, spot what things might be going right, might be going wrong, and being able to do something about it, being an action. So when we talk about sort of agentic enterprise, it is different because it's about describing, that the business isn't just querying to get an answer. It's about being able to continuously ask questions, but continuously take action upon information as well, without necessarily needing human. You can set a piece of work off, leave it, come back to it, you've received it. And that's where I say that sort of co-work paradigm really comes to play, because you'll be able to, and as it said within the summit, and as we saw with some of the videos, and I'd encourage anyone on the podcast to have a watch of any of those videos that you do find on YouTube. Being able to work with your data on your desktop or your mobile, be able to generate dashboards, be able to generate artifacts, be able to reoccurringly ask a question. That's really powerful, and I know we said we'd sort of talk less about the tech and more about it from a C-suite perspective. If I'm like a CFO and I want to monitor, I've got a Monday board pack I've got to create, or I've got to put commentary towards last week's trading, I can use co-work to schedule that kind of stuff. That's going to save me time. But because it's been built with my data, built with my understanding and my semantics that have been agreed as an organization, I'm able to get to more interesting, or being able to read that information and take action, not spend time trying to build that. If I was a CEO, if I'm thinking I usually get weekly updates, or I have to pass a request to a data team and then I have to wait, or having co-work, having, again, your data organized, having the semantics in the same place, and having co-work, I'm going to be able to go, actually, do you know what? I can go and ask that question, and it's going to be able to give me the rationale behind how it worked, be able to provide me the answer I look for. I think this is a really interesting time because, people like to learn differently. People like to operate differently. From an education perspective, when I used to work in education, you have, auditory learners, you've got visual learners. Actually, we're in a position where you're going to be able to start to get your data from very different ways. You're still going to get the same answer, still going to be trusted, but you're going to get it in a way that means it's digestible for you. And that's really powerful. And I think that's where I say the agentic enterprise, that's the promise, you could say. We saw that a lot at Summit. It was really interesting.